Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight, to our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reaction and commentary series. I'm Alexis, joined by David, of course, here. The show that is catered to the longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. fan that wants to come back on here and talk endlessly about one of our favorite shows of all time. And this has been a moment that we have been anticipating for quite some time, since over a year ago, where we first started doing, or we first thought of and then announced to do this rewatch reaction series. This is one of the most important episodes of the entire show. I do think it's definitely one of the shining and brightest moments of the entirety of anything related or associated to the MCU. We all knew it when we first saw it on October 27th, 2015, and I think to this very day we have the exact same thing. The same viewpoint as this episode has really aged considerably well, I should say. So we all know what we're here. This is the fifth episode of the third season, 4,722 hours. This was written by Craig Titley and directed by Jesse Brochko. This was, of course, broadcast on October 27th, 2015 to 6.40 million viewers. And as we all know, it received overwhelmingly positive responses and critical praise for the storytelling and Elizabeth Henstridge's performance. Speaking of the returning cast here, well, most of this episode is just Elizabeth Henstridge alongside Dylan Casey, who plays the astronaut Will Daniels. And then we do, of course, have appearances by Clark Gregg, Ming-Na Wen, Chloe Bennett, and Ian DeCastiger. This, as I mentioned, is a big one, and there's a lot more to say on this as far as the development and the production is concerned. So let me go ahead and lay this out for you. And then, of course, after this, David will go ahead and reel in some of the comments from last week. Because last week we were like pedal to the metal on this season. And of course, here we come, and we're going to pause on all of that because we've got something else to deal with in a pretty big way this week. So in September 2015, following the airing of the season's premiere, executive producer Jeffrey Bell stated that at some point we will fully explore what's happened to her. He called it the craziest thing we've done, a different kind of episode. The next month, Marvel announced that the episode, the fifth of the season, would be titled 4,722 Hours. The decision to dedicate an entire episode to Simmons' time on the planet was made early in the planning of the third season, so that the character could rejoin the rest of the cast early in the season while avoiding having the second season's cliffhanger feel worthless because she's back and she's fine. The use of the titular hours to mark the passage of time came after the idea of the planet not having a sunrise was set, as using days was then no longer reasonable. The series writers' room worked together to break the story, which took around an hour and a half rather than the usual few weeks. Series writer and supervising producer Brent Fletcher came up with the idea to split the 4,722 hours into 5 acts, with each written like a chapter of a book. The acts were given labels such as The Stranger, The Plan, and this structure served as the basis for Titley's script. Though many similarities were noted between the episode and the film The Martian, Titley had not seen the film when he was writing the script, and instead was inspired by the general science fiction trope of a person alone on a planet, and such films as Enemy Mine. Elizabeth Henstridge described the episode as a coming-of-age story. I think we see Simmons at the start, and she's never really been combat ready. We see her have to survive, and just to see her go on this journey from complete despair. Henstridge also noted thriller elements in the episode. On the moment in the episode where Simmons loses hope, Henstridge explained, "I never thought we'd see her get to that place. It justifies her relationship with Will, too, because she was ready to end it all, and he was the one who pulled her back from the brink." Concerning that relationship with the new character, Will Daniels, the executive producers worked with Titley to try and make it feel earned in the episode, given the fan following of Fitzsimmons. Executive producer Jed Whedon also noted that this episode wasn't a story about the two of them on this planet, but a story about Fitz hearing this and how he will respond. He breaks your heart at the end. She breaks your heart. And hopefully, you're feeling for all three involved. Those bitches, those writers, always making us suffer through Fitzsimmons. And of course, we're only in season 3, which means we're just getting started when it comes to that. Having the NASA astronauts travel to the planet in 2001 was a reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which also featured a monolith, while tightly named Daniels' fellow astronauts after his favorite cinematic astronauts: Austin from $6 Million Man, Taylor from Planet of the Apes, and Brubaker from Capricorn 1. Interesting. Okay. Filming occurred in a work quarry in Simi Valley and in Northridge, LA, near the Mojave Desert during the day, with director of photography Felix Parnell using a filtering effect inspired by Mad Max Fury Road. And if you know Mad Max Fury Road, I didn't even make that connection, but now that I have it in my head, oh, I see what you mean. And of course, Mad Max Fury Road, if you know, for those who don't remember, came out probably a month to 2 to 3 months before this was being written and or filmed. So it's very close to line, but that should tell you the impact that Fury Road had on the writers of this show, because I believe later on in this season, in the same arc, they do name drop Furiosa, which is funny. So it's if you remember that one. So yeah, definitely Fury Road had a big influence on this episode and this season. And I can totally see now that I'm reading this for the first time what that connection is. This was seen to be more practical than night shooting in the desert, given that almost every scene takes place during the 18-year-long night on the planet. Because of this, the production struggled with the intense heat of the desert. I can imagine. Around 22 minutes of extra footage was shot for the episode and had to be cut. Wow. Including a subplot in which Simmons loses her grandmother's necklace and Daniels finds it for her. They really went all out, it looks like, on this particular one. So that 22 minutes of extra footage, that's more so than what would be the case, I think. On how continuity was emphasized during the making of the episode, Bochco explained that for each of the episode's 5 acts, there was a different stage of hair, makeup, and wardrobe, so the crew could depict the physical changes to Simmons as time progresses. Rather than try and film the episode in complete order, which was impossible due to the location scheduling needs, the production just tried to avoid changing from one stage to another, and then back again. On how much the episode shows the entity on the planet, that's basically Hive, Brochko and tightly compared it to the shark in Jaws. Which, the episode just showing it from time to time and a bigger reveal of the creature coming in at a later episode. Just to give a hopefully quick, peek at how other people who we don't usually cover as far as like reviewing the show, Den of Geeks, Rob Lean, didn't like the episode. He was less positive. He said praising the brave decision to focus on Simmons, while noting that the undeniable similarities between the episode and The Martian, panning the introduction of Daniels as more like a plot device than a real driving force for the episode, and the unwanted negative introduction of a love triangle to the series. Well, fuck that.
Yeah. Also brave.
Yeah, honestly.
To write this episode. I feel like this is like an obvious trope for long shows.
Brave. Okay, yeah. Joseph McCabe of Nerdist said, "This week's Shield is so good that it leaves me in a state of pessimism because I can't see any way to follow it up that gives it a satisfying resolution to the story." Yeah. Again, this really just speaks to... This comes across as a very backhanded, like, yeah, you got a good episode there, but I'm only reminded that your show isn't very good, so I don't know. Basically, that's what it comes back to. It's like, okay. So these people don't seem to have that much faith in the show for being able to wrap this thing up pretty well. Okay. Henstridge was named TV Line's Performer of the Week for October 25th for her performance in the episode. Okay. Some people, there's just no winning with David. Before we begin, let's go ahead and look at some of the comments that we got from last week, and we have quite a bit to get through. Go ahead.
Okay. So, first one's from Silva. Timeout. David has never seen Jaws. Well, the 50th anniversary just passed, so it's the perfect time for a reaction video.
Steven Spielberg is an incredible director. I don't have the opportunity to talk too much about him when we're doing these kind of reactions, but he is my favorite director. He is the one that I most identify with as far as having the same kind of sensibilities, and I'm a sucker for sentimentality, and if you're not, go fuck yourself, right? But back to the main point here, because of that, David, I was trying to get David to watch all of the Spielberg films, and they're sitting there in a virtual locker. It's just like the timing isn't great, and there's so many things happening as per usual. So by this point, we were hoping to have seen Jaws, but that didn't quite happen. So maybe we can do something about that.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? Who knows?
Work it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one's from Jack Dubs. I skipped commenting on the previous 2 episodes, but here are my brief thoughts. For episode 2, great episode. The show firing on all cylinders. The plot moves along at a feral clip, and the character work for the regulars are sublime. It's sublime. For episode 3, not a fan of this one. Lincoln has never been a friend of mine, so a whole episode devoted to his character was always going to struggle to hold my interest. Yeah, we get it. And then for episode 4, a good little building block to a much bigger story. The best part being the swift wrap up to the Hunter May Ward plot. Lesser shows would have dragged out this bit for a whole season. I mentioned that. Kudos to the writers for having it merely be a stepping stone to much more riveting arcs involving Ward and May. Which, yeah.
Jack, thank you so much for saying that. And I think you just look again. There were too many people at the time that gave this show too little credit in, I think, just about every way imaginable. And we've talked about them ad nauseum. But I think it bears repeating that, especially now, 10 years later, that we're living in a rather, I mean, we thought in the 2010s that we had this golden age of television. It turns out television was just kind of like destroyed completely. And now what we're left with is just like, and I'm not saying it's all bad or it's all crap, but I think it's been fundamentally devastated in ways that people just can't, I mean people in power, like executives, have no hope in being able to get it back to how it was because they're the ones who fucked it over. Let's be real about that. But when it comes to genre storytelling, what this show has always been able to do, what you said, not wasting our time. And you were right about that May Hunter storyline, which wasn't bad, by the way, but having it wrapped up and only be a stepping stone into a much more riveting arc later on, yeah, that's what this show does best. And at the time, people didn't know that because they didn't watch it. Yeah. But I thank you for bringing that up because I think it is one of the qualities of the show that makes it truly great.
Okay. Next one's from Gary Marshall. For next week's episode, when Craig Titley was on the Love in the Time of Hydra podcast, he told some interesting stories regarding the filming of that episode. He also timestamped it for us.
Interesting. Can we go ahead and just watch that?
Sure.
And one, of course, is 4,722 hours. I would call it easily a top 3 of the entire series. It's just a brilliant, brilliant hour of television. And I would love to just hear about breaking that story and bringing that one to life.
You know, the interesting thing, I will definitely come back for that podcast because it should be a special 2-hour podcast because there's so many stories about the making of that. And us talking about, can we get away with this? Can we do a Simmons-centric episode, right? Maybe it's just be the B story or maybe the A story, then we decided to. I was really championing going for it. Let's just go for it, and everybody agreed. And then it sort of got weirder. We're like, it's gonna be a planet at night. It's gonna have this blue tent, and we're like, ABC's not gonna let us get away with this, but they did. And but here's the fight. I had such a good vision for what this could be, but also in the writers. So usually once you talk about what's going to go, the writers room starts, and it could be a week, 2 weeks till you figure out the structure. Went in the writers room. It was me, Brent Fletcher, and Monica. And I think it was Fletcher that wrote on the board. He said gave each of the 5 acts like a chapter title, like waking up, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, that's a great structure. And this is like 10 in the morning. At noon, we had the whole thing fleshed out. We went into to see Jed and Mo and Jeff. It's like, we have the shape. That's what you do at that time when it's on one board. We have the shape of the story. And they were like laughing. They're like, no, we actually do. And for such a complicated we were just all in the zone, right? And we pitch out like, holy cow. Because then after that, then you go like call brick by brick, where you start writing scene by scene. We do it on old school on the marker boards, right? And then from there outline. But what normally takes a week to 10 days, sometimes longer, we did in about 2 hours on that episode. It was just magic was happening.
Yeah. I remember, I think I was like, didn't watch that one live. I was like a week or 2 late. I fell behind at that point. And I remember my friend Brett, who's been on the show a few times, being like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just leveled up in a way that like you're not prepared for. It's because I'm a season 1 defender. I think the whole thing is fantastic, but this episode was just like I would say an Emmy-worthy episode of television. Where you
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And Elizabeth should have gotten Emmy. Like she was such a trooper. Like I still have behind the scenes footage. Like she did a lot of her own stunts. She's on a hill when the sand is blowing in her eyes. That's here. I have pictures of her. We'd yell cut. She would lay down and the medics would come over and put water in her eyes to get the sand out. But she was a trooper. And it was like 110 degrees where we were shooting. And this is why I love Elizabeth. We have a second. It's not that long story, but I got heat stroke. Obviously, look at this. I'm a pink Irish, so I get a heat stroke if I turn my lights on too up and bright. But then Jesse Bochco got heat stroke. We all started dropping like flies, right? Because it was horrible, and there was no cool place to go. You go to the shade, and there's wind, but the wind feels like a hot hairdryer. And Elizabeth she was in the sun. They gave her a little umbrella. She was walking around to everybody that's heat stroking, offering water and candy. Are you going to be okay? Like she's like Nurse Nightingale, as opposed to, a lot of people would go in diva mode and like, I'm going in my trailer and not coming out until it's 10 degrees cooler out here. So
I would have been a monster in that weather. I would have 100% been the worst version of myself.
It was horrible. We went to hell and back. That's why there's so many stories, and it just really bonded us together. But I thought I was going to die. I've never heat stroke before. It's scary.
Yeah.
And then
you've inspired me. When we get to this episode next year, we're about a year away from this one. We've got to go long. It's got to be a 2-hour episode. Speaking of, do you have a hard out? Can we go a little over 7 or?
Oh yeah, no.
Okay, cool, awesome. I have another for 4,722 hours. Would you consider that a bottle episode? Because I think the definition of bottle episode has gotten muddled in recent years, and so I feel like you're the perfect person to ask.
Well, no, because generally it's a bottle episode, and then it's pretty much one location, one actor. But a bottle episode generally means this is the episode where we're going to save money.
Yes.
And we did not save money on this. It was expensive because we had to travel 2 locations, sort of these sand dunes like near Simi Valley, and then the full-on 3-hour road trip out into Death Valley. And everybody stayed in a hotel there because it's 2 days of shooting there. It was not a cheap episode to make.
You're validating me because I Googled, I was interested. I Googled Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. bottle episode, and this came up, and I was like, that's not what a bottle episode is.
No.
Like, and I think that people have kind of change the meaning because they don't understand it to mean a separate thing, its own thing, a standalone episode. And so thank you for that.
I think it has like two meanings. There's the meaning outside the business, and in the business it basically just means this is where we save money. Like Breaking Bad, it's going to be two guys on one set with a fly driving
with a fly.
That's a bottle episode. That's as bodily as you can get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're gonna put a pin on that episode because we're a year away. But from what you've told, I can't wait to hear more about that episode.
That's actually pretty interesting stuff. That's Craig Titley. I remember watching this. Yeah, very enthusiastic guy. Love that he was out there doing all that stuff. It gives definitely a much greater appreciation for what we're about to watch, knowing how horrible it was to film it. Because I didn't even know myself that they actually filmed it in the day, although like, that makes more sense than going at night, duh. But it's like, 110 degrees is insane. For anybody to go through that. I also will say though is about the whole bottle episode. I think that also is just another sign of how media literacy has really gone down the tubes.
I mean, I gotta be honest though too. I didn't know the bottle episode actually meant like cheap episode. I didn't I always saw
in one sense it does.
In one sense
it does, but not in every sense. You know, it's like I guess like to people who are making the show, right? I think that's what Craig was saying. If you're the one who is making the show, what the lingo for bottle episode would mean, like you're trying to save money because like, okay, when I think of an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. bottle episode, I think of the episode that you and I had the most problems with in season 7, the last season, which when all the time traveling was done for the most part, and they were just staying in the 80s. And there was this whole episode where Jiaying was killed again, but by Nathaniel Malick this time. But there was the reunion between Jiaying and Daisy. That all was happening at the lighthouse. Or a lot of season 5 were bottle episodes where mostly everything was in the lighthouse.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, not really, because when you think of a bottle episode, it usually is a very limited cast, not like the whole ensemble. Like I think Doctor Who has plenty of bottle episodes where it's just the Doctor and his companion, maybe one other person, but they're in one space. Like maybe, remember in season 10, Oxygen, there was Peter Capaldi and Bill and Nardole, and they're going to the space station and they have to wear these suits, but they only have so much oxygen because capitalism is awful, and it was like charging them or whatever it was. Like, and they were basically there the entire episode. Like that could be considered a bottle episode too. It's this one. I will be more charitable in that you can stretch the definition of it a little bit more. But what Jamie was saying is people have kind of taken it to mean like
filler
an offshoot or a detour or filler, like Last of Us in the first season, right? That's kind of a more recent famous example where it was just the Ron Swanson episode, right? Or whatever it was. But go ahead.
No, yeah, that's kind of what I thought bottle episode meant, which is kind of like a either filler episode or kind of just like a detour of the story and all that, which that's how I always thought of it as, but I never really pieced it together. I know there are episodes like that where like we gotta save money we gotta stick it to one place and all that. The one that I for sure noticed was Legends of Tomorrow. That's the one with like a time traveling heroes and all that. They're going through different eras. And there was the one episode where it was just in their spaceship and they were dealing with time pirates or something like that. And yeah, I was listening to a couple of podcasts where they were like, this is exactly what I knew was going to happen, which is they're just going to put in time pirates somehow. And that's going to be the bottle episode.
I'm sure there was a Matt Smith episode. I think it was called Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, where it was just in the TARDIS itself, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like that happens all the time in sci-fi, specifically because, hey, it's expensive to do a space or a space adjacent kind of show or a special effects heavy show on TV. And I'll tell you this though, for all of the many number of shows that we have right now in the 2020s that did have a higher budget, it still didn't amount for really anything. Sure, Loki Loki had a great budget, and Loki had amazing looking episodes. And I'm not saying Loki is a bad show, especially in comparison to like its company, shall we say. But I also do think Loki would be far more loved if instead of it being a 12 episode miniseries altogether, if it was maybe 2 seasons of 12 episodes or 3 seasons of each. I mean, not altogether, but or maybe 3 seasons of 20 episodes. Like how how TV used to be, but then again, the effects wouldn't look as great, quote unquote. But I'm sorry, like I don't need that. I think shows like Shield and Doctor Who, yes, they're kind of the poster boys for like what a limiting budget can do when you're doing this kind of storytelling. But because you're TV, I think Shield and Doctor Who, there are some of my favorites because what they have an advantage over the films is they have the space to do more with the characters in their ensemble, more characterization. And I think it works quite well that way. That also benefited Star Wars with the Clone Wars and Rebels. And of course, I mean, Andor is the one exception where it's like it got the goods as far as the VFX is. I mean, and they spend a pretty penny for that, as has come to light. But it didn't sacrifice on what it wanted, its vision and everything. The point I'm making is this: you don't need a movie level budget to be valid, and I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on that. And I will say, I haven't seen the new Doctor Who episodes after the specials, the 2 seasons or whatever. But from what I hear in the press, Russell T Davies was very, very preoccupied with the association and partnership of Disney, in particular because they were going to give them more money to do more with their budget. And we saw a little bit of that in the specials where it's like, that's a more than what you would usually do. But I also would say, I don't think Doctor Who needs that.
Yeah,
I don't think it needs that budget. I think, and honestly, again, and I speak as somebody who hasn't seen those seasons, I think he would have been far better serviced if he was prioritizing the things that people like most about him and not the Marvelization of it, but more, or the connections or the kooky wacky moments, more so just the human character moments that were present in those 60th anniversary specials, which, by the way, you can watch our reactions to on this channel if you want to, by the way, from a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, wherever it was. And Shield, I think, has always been kind of a perfect show in that department because it has never made us want for characterization. Why we love this show so much is because, it could be a show, and yes, it is sometimes, they have to go through a lot of gobbledygook, like, dialogue, but they always do it in a way that's efficient, and you just make it feel enjoyable, and you kind of get to like the characters more, so even after they've said all this, like, meaningless crap. And this show never forgets to put characterization first. And I think a lot of other shows have forgotten to do that, and that's why they're kind of like in this no man's land space where it's like they don't even know where to go from here on out. I mean, Doctor Who, before Russell T Davies came back, Chris Chibnall destroyed it beyond repair in terms of, like, there was no characterization whatsoever. It looked pretty, but at what cost? Sorry, that went on a huge tangent, but thank you for, who was it, Jack Dubs, or who was it that gave us the
Gary Marshall, Durla,
or Gary Marshall? Sorry, I don't know why I said Dylan. Gary Marshall for giving us that clip there, and I'm happy that you got to see that, David, because you get to see the enthusiasm of Craig Titley. And also not having read the little bit of the show notes before the fact, I mean, they really, this was not at all guided by saving money. It cost them more money to go and do it this way. So, and I would also say, if Shield had been a much more popular show in its time, we probably would have gotten like an extended cut or more of those deleted scenes in like the DVD or even on Disney Plus. But alas, that's not where we're at. So, David, do you have anything to say on what we were just talking about? And then go to the next comment?
No, nothing more about this comment, but we got the last comment.
Okay.
Yeah. It's from Serenity. I guess that Andrew was Lash, and I remain proud of that fact a decade later.
Congratulations on that one.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't know a lot of people, I guess, guessed it. I
Mhm.
didn't know it until I was rewatching. Like, okay, the signs were there, but I wasn't thinking in a million years they would do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Personally,
I'm sure if you put in like a lot of effort, you could have figured it out and all that. But when it comes to these kinds of things, I'm just like, you're gonna reveal it to me. It's fine. I'm just not whatever. So yeah. And then Serenity puts Mike is alive, Mac is alive, Flint is alive. Only Trip and Andrew end up dead. Now, is there a trend in the Whedonverse that black men get the short end of the stick? Kinda. Wood from Buffy gets the Mike treatment, fake out death. Horatio from the Nevers. The Nevers. Oh, I remember them.
I've heard of that show.
I saw it. It was pretty good.
Okay.
Can't remember the character though. Gets the Mac treatment, joins the team. He also had a wife and child. Gunn from Angel gets the Flint treatment, exists beyond his original life. Book from Firefly gets the Trip treatment, sacrifice for other characters. And Boyd from Dollhouse gets the Andrew treatment, consequences of their dodgy actions.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Serenity, for bringing that up. And yeah, Mike lives, Mac lives, and Flint. So it's like not all of the black characters die off here.
Yeah.
I think people maybe were a bit. I think they were jumping the gun on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why they felt the need to single this show out over others. But...
No, I mean it's been a common trope. I mean there was a South Park episode where it was Cartman had to get some drill or something. And he's like, okay, I need a hot woman, a black guy, and a scientist. I need the black guy to sacrifice himself. So and that's what happens. It's like, okay, go, you gotta do your thing. So like it's a common trope from like a whole bunch
it is
of
a common trope. I just don't understand why they had to associate it with this show. It's like, and I come at it from this perspective. It's like this show doesn't need that. Okay, like it already has such an uphill battle with just getting people to watch it. Is where I'm coming from. It doesn't need this weird controversy, especially where like it didn't really come to fruition the way that they were framing it.
No, I was gonna say like because it's a common trope. Whenever it happens, even if it was just like that one character that dies out of like every other person of color that gets to live and all that, they'll see it as it's the killing off the black character. Like it doesn't really matter. People want to point it out and all that. It just you got to look at the whole though in order to like really point it out. It's kind of like that thing of how people were complaining Black Widow gets killed off in Endgame. How people were like, "Oh, this is fridging." It's like, yes, by definition, for sure, it's that. Like, it's the woman sacrificing herself for the men to, come up and everything. Yes, it's exactly that. The thing is, though, it makes sense for her in terms of like the rules that they set to get the Soul Stone. It had to be her because everyone else it wouldn't have worked out. It wouldn't have worked. You wouldn't have gotten the Soul Stone. And so, yeah.
I will also say that, I mean, there is a point in season 5 where Mac jokes about this whole thing. It's like when they get blasted into the future for the first time and they're on the lighthouse for the first time. And Coulson suggests about splitting up and Mac's like, no, we're not going to split up. That's how they get they pick you off one by one and we know who's going to be first, referencing to himself because so this show is self-aware about that, to be fair. So anyway, without any further ado, I say let's go ahead and start actually watching this episode. Previously. Oh, there's
nope.
no previously. Nope. I was like, ooh. Jesus Christ. That's still hard to watch.
I know. There was like a little sound, cool sound effects going on there where I'm just hearing it on my left side, and then just when it got to the center of the screen, I hear like both sides. That was kind of interesting. I don't think I've noticed much of the sound effects in the show.
Breathable, oxygenated. Gravity seems to be slightly stronger. Or I'm very tired.
See, I never even thought to compare it to The Martian. Now that I just remember, The Martian, I think, came out the same month that this episode did. And it came out maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before this aired on TV. So I can see why people would do that, but I'm like, that's not fair.
After all, we're going for dinner.
Just stay there for 13 hours, that would be bored out of my mind. Like 13 hours, they're not coming.
Yeah.
There has to be a sunrise eventually.
Personally, I think I would do well. I don't very much care for the sun.
Yeah.
And why would you want it up if there's no shade?
Sun! What did you do to it? I want the sun!
I mean, it will drive you crazy. That's true. So I get where she's coming from.
Yeah. Especially because even though we're supposed to, you know, we're able to see like the whole terrain. Who knows from her perspective if like she just can't see what's in front of her. I don't know.
God, I love this title card.
The average.
It's like, this is not your normal episode. And that was the final, like, yeah, this is not going to be normal.
Should I wear a dress or would that be weird? Oh, please don't pull out the chair for me. Will do.
And he did pull out the chair for her, if we remember. Like, just trying to picture again, and I don't want to mean to pick on Loki or the Disney Plus shows, but if they were to do this, never in a million years would they think to go to a real location. This would all either be blue screen or
The volume.
the volume.
Yeah, for sure the volume.
And I'm not saying that they're not using VFX. Obviously they are with the sandstorm and everything, but I mean, there's a good mixture of blending it in together that you don't really, I'm not seeing it, really. I mean, you know when something is in effect because, of course, you're not going to simulate a damn sandstorm. But it's like, the trick is also the filtering. I mean, this mostly looks like they're there. For TV, I should say. Like, I'm sure, yeah, it can look better if it were a movie, but I'm like, that much better than this? And I do love one little unappreciated aspect of the episode that they are keeping track of how many hours. 109 hours at this point. And that does look quite lovely.
Yeah.
Until, well... Yeah.
Yeah. I would have questioned, like, did she not think there would be a monster in there? Come on, you're
well, there's no life, right? Is there really any life in the planet?
I mean, that thing. Well, actually, that's a science thing. That's like where there's water, there's life, and all that. So she kind of could figured. But I mean, at the same time, though, I understand. Like, she's been in for 109 hours, a couple days now. She was desperate.
If I don't eat, I won't make it. Unfortunately, the only source of food.
I don't know if I would like go back in there. Like, ooh.
I do like the moment though when she gets it and she starts screaming. It's good.
Your dinner, bitch!
Everyone always said we could read each other's minds, Fitz.
She's so good.
Been on this stupid planet for a month now. I lost my way to the entry point. I need to find the...
Run. Like, that's... It's been a month. And you hear that, and I'm like,
No.
Especially when you're in the middle of talking, like... It's just not getting any better, is it? Like, this is pretty fucked.
Who are you? What do you want?
I don't even know what I was thinking to myself. Like, what is happening here? Like, I didn't think it was another human being. Like, is it an alien? And then when we see that it's just a guy.
It's still here.
course I'm still here.
Just getting that Uncle Iroh exercise right there, you know?
Yeah,
Still be all
right,
jacked
right,
up.
Just a blast out of there.
How was your day?
Also creepy, but also really sad how he came up and it's like, "You're still here?" And it just walks away. It's just like
Yeah.
he can't even fathom that someone's here.
It's actually real.
Hmm.
Definitely real.
I would have locked him up. But,
Yeah, lock them up.
but I'm not sure that there was anything to lock the cage up, to be fair. So
No, yeah, I don't think so. But then also too, it's like I'm sure she thought she can lose him in the terrain and all that.
Trying to eat me?
That was your idea. Besides, that's before I knew you were real. If the evil hadn't gotten to you or to me.
Next time you have doubts about whether someone is real, ask them to hit you.
I'll keep that in mind.
I think the first time that I saw this episode, it did kind of surprise me when it was revealed that those two ended up getting together. It was because of the shock. It's just like, why would they do that? Like, this is Fitzsimmons. Like, what are they doing here? But looking at it again, I can see kind of the instant attraction in there, especially because there are plenty of people who
You certainly came here prepared.
their first way of expressing what they feel about each other before they even know what it is lashing out at each other. And those two have been like, and I'm not saying right now, at this moment, they have feelings to each other. I'm just saying it's like, it can start this way. When two people are like egging each other on
2015.
like this. And that can turn when there's like this intense curiosity between two people, that can often turn into more. So I can kind of see it more so now. And of course, I don't mean to suggest that it never made sense to begin with, because I mean, for Will's part, this is the first person in 15 years that he's seen, it looks like. And then of course, through Gemma's part, he will save her from like this despair, this hopelessness. So it does make sense.
2001.
My God. You've been here 14 years.
Like I said, it's hard to keep track.
Man, 14 years there is...
I'm sorry, but I need to conserve the battery. Fitz engineered it to last a long time, but it's draining.
Yeah, about that, Fitz. You could have shared that with everybody else. But
It's a natural source of heat.
little
Keeps the
secret.
planet warm without sunlight.
That sounds very sciencey of you.
I think it's the fires of hell.
Okay.
There it is.
NASA was always curious about the monolith. Budgets for space exploration had vanished, so some small group on the inside convinced everyone it was the affordable future of space exploration.
I like the mood change with him, where he was just like dreading having her here and all that, but now he's just like, oh wait, hold on, I have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just that there's also a psychological reason for what happened to them. Maybe they went mad from extreme isolation. It's not uncommon.
It is for astronauts. We're trained for years of isolation.
Well, if they didn't go mad,
Well, then I must have gone mad.
On paper, when you read what this is going to be, you'd think like, I wonder what it's going to feel like in the pacing of it. We're moving through this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
and at no point do you feel like they're stretching anything out or that we're biding our time. Every little piece of what we're getting, especially with how great the script is right now and how these two characters are communing with each other, it's just going the way that it should.
You talk about him a lot. His name is like your favorite word. I mean, that's a little bit more than a best friend.
we're inseparable. Well, we were. Anyone in your life?
I always thought there'd be time for that later.
And also just love how to linger on like how great the script is. I mean, they're allowing for moments of silence, which can be rare for a fast-paced show, especially on broadcast television. Like this one, it's just like in many ways, it's a very unconventional episode, especially at a time. Oh boy.
Where are you going?
Obviously nowhere.
Okay. She's moving around the terrain like better now. She's used to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I would have immediately just like run as far away as possible because, like, I'm sorry, that just looks like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Like,
That thing has been killing everyone that's come through here for centuries.
How long have people known about the monolith? And why keep sending people when there's no way back? Is it...
well, about that. Well, I mean, I don't.
Please stay put.
That doesn't matter anymore.
Why?
Supposedly the ancient Inhumans, which were around the time that, I guess, of cavemen or whatever. Around that time, I want to say. And I guess if you're going to buy into the theory that these came from the whatever dimension that Izel comes from, like, again.
Planet that's moving, rotating on its axis, the portal is fixed. Since we know the date, time, and place we both arrived, we know how long it took to move from X to Y. If we track the stars long enough...
Which is, I mean, we don't really necessarily need to know, because, like, for those of you who are aware and appreciate Stanley Kubrick's movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, the monolith is meant to be mysterious, and you're not supposed to really know where it comes from, and that kind of is the point of it.
30 meters wide waiting for us. It's impossible to cross, Gemma. We'll never make it.
Didn't you say you can't resist doing something when the odds are impossible?
Oh.
On Earth, it seemed to open randomly, but it only appeared random from our point of view.
What opens it?
The moons. Their degree of alignment affects the portal the way our moon affects the tide, causing it to ebb and flow, pulling things in and out.
What a genius to figure that out. I mean...
I'm gonna shoot this into the wall across the canyon. We're gonna slide across on the rope. Would you think I was gonna build a helicopter?
Kinda. Eat, shower, or sleep.
Shout out, of course, to Bear's music. We haven't been pointing it out too much, but it's not overpowering here. It's just very subtle, but it's appropriate whenever it's used, and I've been enjoying it and noticing it more now this time, because the score is just not one of the things that you, I think, pay attention to on first watch or second watch or third watch, but
This is the spot, but
You said it was 30 meters wide. There's no way we can cross that.
it was, I swear.
That's more like 100 meters, unless there was some significant earthquake.
It doesn't want us to leave.
oh my god, man.
Now!
Would have made it.
I think my dad would have liked you. Sometimes you remind me of...
I love that,
That was
shot.
a cool
of the
shot.
flare. Yeah, right?
Will! They came for you! It wasn't business one of yours!
Gemma, run! It's not what you think it is!
The way it's moving on,
Yeah.
no. It was like, no, don't do that. Give me the creeps, man. No way. And then there's that.
Mhm.
I,
It's here!
Gemma, look at me. Run, go. Yes, you can make it, go.
I think this is the next shot right here. Yeah, that just... This shot right here just breaks my heart, honestly.
yeah. At this point, though, this is not Will anymore, is it? It seems like that's Hive.
Is it for sure?
Well, if you want to believe Hive's word for it, later on he does say that Will died saving Gemma. And he did throw the gun away, as if he has no more use for it. So I don't know. Think maybe it's out there up for debate, but the way that I would think, maybe it is high. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. Just yet. Okay. Well, that was the episode. Let me go through some initial reactions that were first posted on 10 years ago from the lovely people over at Reddit. Thinking about it, that bottle shot was probably what knocked the sand back through the portal.
Maybe.
Which is what sent Fitz and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. down the path to find the castle. S.H.I.E.L.D. Intrinsic Factor says S.H.I.E.L.D. has super phone batteries and isn't sharing it with the rest of the world. It's one thing not to share your invisible jet, but my battery doesn't even last a day. Oh, man. Can we give some love to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. title reveal? Loved how they did that in absolute silence. The entire episode was shot and written in a different style than the regular show, and it was a fantastic choice to change the art direction for it. They could have had us constantly jumping around in flashbacks, or even just Gemma talking about the things that they decided to separate in the story, but from the main show, so we could have lived through the experiences alongside her for an episode. Now we know why Gemma flinched at the wine on her date with Fitz.
Yep.
Because they were pouring her wine right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then one person's like, oh, yeah. Gemma Simmons built this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Nice.
That's a good one. Way to smash the barely repaired Fitzsimmons ship Space Boyfriend. But seriously, though, Fitz is a freaking class act. Continuing the tradition of never having Fitz be happy. Oh, seriously. Remember, folks, sometimes shit happens, and other times the girl you like is sucked through a monolith to the other side of the universe and hooks up with a good-looking astronaut dude that you're going to have to end up saving because reasons. It's, yeah. So I just want to point out that deciding to fuck literally the only guy in the world at a low point emotionally and deciding that it would be shitty to leave said guy on a planet with a death monster doesn't mean you're still going to fuck him once there are other options around. Just to rationalize what would happen if they would actually save him.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have survived because of him. Please understand, Fitz. Fish has flashbacks to Fizzed and the underwater scene. Yeah, I understand. Let's see here. Fitz had very little screen time, but he's still the MVP of the episode. That's funny.
For real.
This week on The Martian meets Lost. I mean Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I guess people were like making those connections right there.
Mm-hmm.
I know this sub likes to go ape shit over Fitzsimmons, and I will concede that Will and her screwed, but I don't think that's the sole reason she wants to go back. Will and Simmons both survived on a desolate death desert planet together. She got out and wants to go back and save. Well, that's a nice thought, but come on, let's be real here. So screw this Will guy. Those first facial expressions from Fitz were fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Interesting. Somebody caught it. Didn't Rosalind, the ATCU lady, work for NASA previously? Hashtag it's all connected. I wonder why. It is connected, actually, to all this. Do you remember that or no?
Oh, okay. I remember now. I was like, wait, who's Rosalind? And
Yeah,
so she works for
Rosalind.
NASA.
So Nessa's gonna we're gonna unravel all of this because like again like at this moment in time when we're watching the season, we're not really in our heads thinking that any of the stuff that's happened with Will on Mavith is going to be connected to a lot of the main players that we've already been following, but it actually is very much going to be the place for the showdown at the end of this season.
Mhm.
Or I should say the mid-season. Yeah, people's reactions to this are really funny. Was this the first episode without Coulson showing up? Yeah, he was in the cell phone video, wasn't he? He was in the video.
Oh yeah, cell phone.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, so, and I heard his voice, so it's like that technically, I guess, counts.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Anyone notice the TARDIS cake in the video Gemma showed of the birthday with Fitz, Coulson, and the rest recorded for her while she was away?
I didn't know it was a TARDIS. I know it was blue, but
I didn't notice that. And then if you remember, and this is something I didn't even you recall back in season 1 when they were being like interrogated by Patton Oswalt when, you know, for their lanyards and everything. I think Gemma did get a question about like, if you were stranded on an island, what would you take with you? The TARDIS,
Mm-hmm.
which is what she said. So it's like interesting stuff there. Like and I'm sure at that point they had no intention of doing like a Castaway Stranded Island kind of episode, but I mean this basically was that.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. I never noticed the TARDIS kick.
That would have
That's
been
interesting.
so funny. Oh wait, no, 2001. Doctor Who didn't come back by then. I was like, oh, it would have been funny if you made like a Doctor Who reference. Will had made like a Doctor Who reference, and then that's how they connected or something. But I was like, dang, 2001, you missed it, my guy.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, you could have
By a
referenced
few
like old
years,
Who and
too.
all that, but still.
That would have been probably a funny conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for a deleted scene or something. Okay. Let me go ahead and look at what it was that Eric Goldman said. He called this episode excellent TV. When 4,722 hours began with the flashback to the scene where Simmons got pulled into the monolith and taken to the other planet, I wondered, wait, is this episode going to only be about what happened to her? And then the title came up and it wasn't the usual logo on the black screen with the big sound effect. It just quietly appeared over the desolate blue landscape Simmons was trapped in, and it was clear that yes, this is going to be a very different episode. Obviously, the concept of a character marooned by themselves is not new, and in fact, I had amusingly just a few weeks back, after it opened, seen The Martian before watching this episode, so those parallels were fresh. By the way, I should have mentioned that The Martian's a great movie.
Oh yeah,
Everybody knows
sure.
that, but it's a truly great movie,
Mhm.
and I have not seen it in 10 years. I need to go back and watch The Martian, but it's a
Yeah.
truly great film. I don't mean to like throw shade at anybody who's making those comparisons because no, The Martian's amazing.
It's really
Just
good.
to be clear
and
about that.
The author who wrote the book, another movie from one of his books is being made, called Project Hail Mary. Pretty much same concept, but I love the book. So get excited for that.
I forgot it was a book. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Plus, series like Galactica and Star Trek have told stories of this sort, among others. But this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a big Marvel ABC Network TV series with a specific Earthbound vibe and feel to it. So for them to take this show in this direction, even for a week, was bold and exciting. Their ace in the hole, of course, was Elizabeth Henstridge. During season 1, even as the show struggled to find itself, Henstridge began to emerge as a big find, bringing a lot of pathos and innate likability to Simmons as they began to give the character more to do. A couple weeks ago, I lauded Henstridge for her performance in A Wanted Inhuman, showing the PTSD-afflicted Simmons struggling to fit back in on Earth. But she outdid herself here. For quite a while, it was only her on screen, And she was excellent showing Simmons try and approach the situation with an optimistic, even scientifically curious perspective, before the true direness of what was happening set in. Watching sweet, wide-eyed Simmons go almost feral, killing and eating that creature, was a sight to behold, and it was emotional seeing her leave her messages for Fitz as time went on, and things got worse and worse. That phone lasting at all is also a miracle, but hey, Shield Tech, right? By the way, I don't know if they filmed in a couple of episodes. We're gonna see one of my favorite scenes of the whole show, where Fitz is alone in the lab. The lighting is perfect, but he's listening to all the phone messages that she left for him. Devastating to think back on it, but it sounds like they recorded all of those messages while they were filming this episode, because I don't know how you could just like go easily back into it. Maybe they did it at that point, I don't know, but like it sounds very much so like they legit did record a lot more messages, and they play some of those in a couple of episodes. And I want to say that they did it here and now. So just before I forget about that. When Simmons stumbled upon Will's, yeah, you could see where this was going. That she would bond with him and maybe even get romantic with him, and was indeed the case. And he'd be the reason she needed to go back to the planet. But it's a testament to how well this episode was constructed and how well the story was told that those predictable aspects didn't hinder how involving this was. Hell, we knew for a fact that Simmons would safely make it home eventually, but it was still heartbreaking when she and Will tried to get Fitz a literal message in a bottle and failed, because we'd seen just how desperate they were and felt their pain in that moment. As an aside, I assume it was likely a purposeful nod to 2001: A Space Odyssey, having Will trapped on that planet since the year 2001, given that we already had a monolith in play. Though given Dylan Casey, the actor, is 31, let's just, oh God, he's almost as old as I am right now at that point. Let's not think about that. Let's just assume he was, no. I'm almost as old as him never mind. Let's move past age, doesn't matter. Let's assume he was playing a few years older than his actual age, or else Will was the doggy howser of both the Air Force and NASA, considering his history. Regardless, Hanstridge and Casey did very good work here conveying the huge bond between these two, for which occurs over months, but for us was just a half hour or so of screen time. We felt them begin to rely on each other and begin to hope that together they could find a way home. And yes, it felt dramatically appropriate and earned to have Simmons sleep with him, which she initiates when they are at their lowest place, having just failed to get that message out and feeling like they were out of options and needed to accept that this was where they'd spend the rest of their life. Thank you, Eric. But I'm sure a lot of Fitzsimmons people were not very, very happy with you saying that. Because let's face it, as Eric says, this is a giant wrench being thrown into the cog of any potential Fitzsimmons romantic pairing. But it's a pretty brilliant one. So many TV shows have to deal with the will they or won't they situation. And if you should just get the two characters together and risk losing a lot of what makes their dynamic compelling for viewers, or sometimes strain credibility to keep them apart. But I was trapped on an alien planet with only one other person, and it seemed like we would never get home. It's pretty difficult to criticize as far as justifying Simmons sleeping with and falling for somebody else. Plus, I continue to be impressed because back in season 1, Fitz and Simmons both initially felt so one-note and bland, and here I am, actively invested in both of them and this unfathomable situation. The final scene between them, the only one not on the alien planet, was terrific as Fitz processed what she just told him and decided he would do everything he could to help her, because of course he would, and save Will. And Henstridge got one more terrific moment showing Simmons tear up as she realized what he was doing for her. I don't quite feel like we saw 100% tracks with Simmons' behavior in A Wanted Inhuman, where she seemed so easily startled and on edge that it really felt like she was being hunted constantly whenever she'd been, not to underplay that there wasn't something very scary out there. But she and Will had a lot of quiet time in the cave too. But in and of itself, wow. did this episode succeed. My wife, like many, dropped Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. early in season 1 and never came back, but happened to be in the room as I watched this episode, and it completely grabbed her, despite zero investment going into it. It truly felt like a standalone movie for most of the running time, expertly telling the story of this bright young woman trapped on this horrible planet and how she survived. Now, what the hell is this planet? Is it from the Marvel Comics? Because now it's more difficult than before to see a direct correlation. But then again, there are a lot of comics out there. To see what Henstridge told me about making this episode and how things changed for Fitz and Simmons in the aftermath. Oh, it's a link to a video. Anyway, Eric graded the episode 9.7. Amazing. Yeah, I think this is, even if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or not, this is like a perfect one-off episode. Mm-hmm. Like, to show them, it's like a small little movie, and it works just well. Like, yep. I don't think you need, and I would hope that people who happen to catch this when it was on TV, like, remember, this episode dropped, and it was, people were noticing it. Like, wow, this is a pretty great episode. And I would hope that people who caught it stayed tuned for what was to come. But David, quick reactions on Eric's review right there.
No, yeah, I agree with what you said, especially the part where the Fitzsimmons shippers were gonna get mad at. But yeah, even when watching this episode, I had the same reaction. As soon as Will showed up, I'm like, they're gonna fall in love. It's gonna mess up.
I didn't get that way. I was completely. Maybe it was just the optimist in me. I didn't want it to happen. Maybe that's why I didn't want it to happen. But like it also just kind of like when the beds pushed together, and I'm like, yeah. Okay. Here's Oliver Sava. Oliver Sava from the AV Club, who, as we know, has had a bit of a mixed bag with the show. He said that the episode 4,722 hours hits a series high point by ditching S.H.I.E.L.D. for space. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't take very many risks, but maybe it should. This episode abandons the season's overarching Inhumans and Hydra plots for an entire episode about how Gemma Simmons survived on an alien planet for over 6 months, and it's a high point of the series that shows the value of breaking from the established formula. The story is one long character study, giving Elizabeth Henstridge the opportunity to show off the depth of her acting ability. And the rich development given to Simmons this week makes me wish every member of the cast could get teleported away for a terrifying extraterrestrial experience. The most obvious comparison point for 4,722 hours is this fall's box office juggernaut, The Martian. Which, by the way, if The Martian came out this year, it would not be a box office juggernaut because people are shit and they suck and they only want to see remakes of movies they've already seen. Not throwing any shade at anybody in particular. What with both stories featuring characters trying to survive on their own in alien environments, but there's also a lot of the Twilight Zone in this episode's DNA. Like the TV series, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. creative team is working with a relatively small budget. And the restrictions forces a writer Craig Titley and director Jesse Bochco to take a more intimate approach to the sci-fi narrative. While The Martian is a very personal story, the scope is large, jumping from Mark Watney's struggle on Mars to NASA's efforts on Earth. By the way, the cast of The Martian is pretty stacked too. Like that I can remember. It's like, hey, I think The Martian might be my favorite Matt Damon performance, but it is filled with really good performances all throughout.
Oh yeah.
Let's see here. Despite my initial disappointment that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s first foray into space doesn't offer much in terms of imaginative sci-fi production, keeping the visual elements grounded draws the viewer's full attention to Henstridge's performance. As much as I want to see some cool alien makeup, making the only other character Simmons interacts with an American human allows Titley to build up the relationship without spending too much time on the inevitable questions of alien character or whatever it was. There is some sort of alien presence on the planet, but it's heavily obscured in its first appearance, And where it appears again, it appears as a NASA astronaut to Trek Simmons. The alien doesn't have an identity yet, which makes it a more ethereal threat for Simmons and Will, one that represents the general danger of the terrain. This show's drab color palette is a significant weak point, but the limited colors of the week's episode actually work in favor of the plot, using a blue lens filter as a quick, easy way of turning the California desert into an alien landscape of endless night. And over the course of the episode, the monochromatic environment becomes more and more oppressive. When there's any variation in color, it's a significant event. The red of the flame of Simmons makes to cook the plant monster that try to drown her in the first visual indicator that things are getting slightly better for her. And even though she wakes up in a cage on hour 761, the warm brown of the cave announces that this is actually a positive development. Anything that gets her away from the harsh blue is a plus, and her human captor quickly becomes her only ally. That also is why it stood out to both you and I when the flare reflection in her eyelids, or her eyeballs, I guess you could say, like it was so notable. Once Will is introduced, it's not difficult to figure out why present-day Simmons is so desperate to return to the alien planet. It could be friendship, but considering Will's handsomeness and Simmons' reluctance to tell Fitz what happened during her time away, it's obvious from the start that they're going to be a romantic pair. The journey is more important than the destination, though, and the bond between Simmons and Will develops organically as their hours together turn into days, then weeks, then months. For most of this time, Simmons is still intensively devoted to Fitz. When she first finds herself stranded, she keeps her composure by thinking like a scientist. But once it starts to sink in that no one is coming for her, she starts to get more emotional and turns to her memory of Fitz for support. She imagines the date they're supposed to go on and worries that their bond won't maintain a romantic context. And Henstridge does great work showing how Simmons' relationship with Fitz gives her the strength to press on. Throughout the first half of the episode, Simmons records voice memos for Fitz detailing her fear regarding the scarcity of food. Okay, let me just... give me 1 second, okay? This is kind of a longer review. I want to just get to the important parts here. There's a notable change in Simmons' disposition once she and Will kiss and start sleeping together. And showing Simmons at her bleakest point earlier makes it easier to accept this new relationship by showing how it drastically improves her outlook. Okay. Fitz isn't going to hold it against Simmons that she found solace in the arms of another man when she was stranded and fighting for her life on another planet for half a year. God, that's a long time. For 6 months. And while it's not the ideal situation for Fitz, he'll do anything to make his best friend happy. If that means reopening a portal to an alien world to save the man who took his place as Simmons' love interest, he'll do it with no questions asked. It's a heartwarming moment for the two characters, ending an exceptional episode by highlighting the relationship that kept Simmons alive for so long. Okay, I think we're done with that. Let's go ahead and go over to Ami.
Damn. That was an insane episode, like, all things considered, because, like it hinged completely on Gemma. Like, up until we encountered Will. You know, it was this one-woman show, and she killed it in this episode, man. And I get it. I can't really hold it against her for anything that happened on the planet, man. I mean, when it comes down to it, you can only have so much hope until you resign yourself to where you are and then try to make the best out of what you have. And it's not like the man wasn't charming, because, let's be real, aside from locking her in a cage, he definitely was. But, like, the inner planet being heated from within, I wonder if it's just got a really intense, like, core, or if there's like a Dyson sphere in its center, something along those lines. Either would explain the way the heat basically radiates from within into even heating the crust. Every once in a blue moon, the sun rises for just a couple of minutes it's just such a wicked and wild waste that they've stumbled upon. And aside from them and this like centipede looking thing that was in the one little patch of water, it seemed like the only other living thing is whatever this is in the sandstorm, whatever it is. And it could change shape. When she first saw it, it looked like this tattered, like Grim Reaper kind of thing, just tattered ass black robes. And then when she was on her way out the second time they encountered it, it had manifested or was wearing whatever, some of the leftover suits from the previous astronauts that had been there, while also wielding that sword that she found, which I think that was from the guy that we saw from like the when we got that flashback when it was in that castle or whatever, when they sent that guy through. I'm pretty sure that was that stuff. I don't know what it is. Like, is it like prey upon? Like, is this like chameleon thing that changes shape, that depending on what it thinks will work in the moment, or is it incorporeal? And I don't know. We got no answers. I don't even have anything that works like that I can even like speculate strongly about. Like, it's just this fucking specter that roams around. And what does it even do to the people it finds? Does it consume them, absorb them? What? I don't know. Because the guy said like it simply drove his, colleagues mad. Yeah, like I said, there's not enough to work with here, man. But for being this like episode where we're stuck with Simmons and this guy and their struggle to survive on this planet, and they're plotting to get off of this planet. It was a lot of fun to watch. Like, it kept it engaging, I think, the entire way through. And I thought they did a great job acting throughout this whole episode. And, we didn't get any other voices until we finally cut back into the future telling the story to Fitz. Well, to be fair, there was the opening scene, which was a retread of, the footage that we saw before at the end of season 2. So there was that. So we were bookended with her and Fitz, which was kind of nice because we got to see everything that happened in the interim and the desperation and lengths that she went through and the hopes that she had never gave up on, that they would keep trying to find her. They both kind of lost hope for a minute until this eureka moment for them both snapped up and they came in just when they needed to. And then because Fitz had already stumbled upon the data that she had been collecting, the little research that she was piecing together to try to understand this rock, this portal, and all this stuff, he, went ahead. He was like, hey, I get it. I understand. And don't worry, I've already figured out the other half of this. And he's got these equations, these simulations already run, and they're going to get him back. They're going to go back for him. Hopefully, he's still alive. I mean, he was just there. We don't know how intense the time dilation is from here to there. We also know that the portal is going to be in a different spot when they go back this time. So there's a lot of things that'll kind of throw a couple curveballs their way, but our team is smart. They'll figure something out, I'm sure. I don't really have too much else to add to this one, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you.
I mean, look, it's really hard to say that much more, right? Because I feel like everything that they could say has been said. It is kind of a perfect episode. I think it's a special one at that. And yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to say, David? Because I think I'm good.
Oh yeah, like you said, everything's been said. We got all the answers that we wanted as to what happened with Gemma. There's still,
still living a couple of questions out there.
New
because
questions rise because of that thing that was.
We saw what happened to her, but we're still not clear why it happened. And then some other because when we went into it, we didn't know about astronaut Will or all this other stuff, and it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, my friends, thank you so much for staying tuned and watching this wonderful episode with us. Come back on here next week for episode number 6, and of course, please share in the comments below your memories of watching this episode for the first time. Maybe how you recall how other people were talking about it when it aired. Maybe this was maybe somebody who's watching was maybe this was their first episode, their first introduction. Who knows? But it definitely, I think, has long lived in our memories as like one of the shining moments of this wonderful show. Thank you all for staying tuned, and we will catch you back next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.